Mali, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and some of the stuff they're sharing around the world. On Newsfeed today, we take a look at how some Indian media are covering the sectarian violence in New Delhi. An update on bullying victim Caden Bales and the near $500,000 the internet has raised for him. Don't sell the steak, sell the sizzle. A look at a very high-tech bit of food. And two marsupials having a snack. Animals doing stuff. As top of our newsfeed, it's the hashtag Delhi Fight Hate. The sectarian violence in the Indian capital seems to have abated slightly. More than 30 people, mainly Muslim, have been killed in some of the worst religious violence in the country in years. The seeming unleashing of Hindu mobs unchecked by the police has left homes and businesses in the Muslim community on fire and people displaced. But on Indian satellite television, a very different story is being told.
There is a video, an inflammatory one, which surprisingly, or rather not surprisingly, has been shared far and wide by many people, that insinuated that a place of worship in Delhi was attacked by protesters of another community. Now the police has formally come out and decried this effort at spreading fake news. This is deliberate, malicious propaganda.
First, apologize for calling a video as fake.
There's heavy security across northeast Delhi this morning after widespread violence with police and paramilitary forces spread out in all the riot-hit areas.
And where are they who said that this was democratic disagreement and taught us about the freedom of expression? Those double-faced hypocrites.
3 days, though, of continuous violence, 10 people lost their lives, 150 people have been injured. How did this spiral of violence start?
उत्तर पूर्वी दिल्ली के कुछ इलाकों में कुछ दिन से जारी हिंसा पर सुरक्षा एजेंसियों को एक बड़ी अहम जानकारी हाथ लगी है। सुरक्षा एजेंसियों के मुताबिक दिल्ली हिंसा को भड़काने में पाकिस्तान और उसकी खुफिया एजेंसी ISI का भी बड़ा रोल है।
Ladies and gentlemen, I am telling you tonight, take a position. Delhi is burning. Your city could be next. India versus the mob should be the only campaign across the country till these people are forced to see reason.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the other things that caught our eye on social media. Well, Saudi Arabia has suspended tourist visas for people coming for Umrah, the Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina, from countries where COVID-19 cases have been confirmed. It's not clear yet if the annual Hajj, which begins in July, will also be affected by these new restrictions. The University of Nairobi has apologised for a memo sent to female students about 3 recent rapes on campus, which said the recklessness of women was to blame. The statement went viral after it was posted to Instagram by Adele Oyongo, who said, "This is what the normalisation of rape looks like, and we will not stand for it." And Caden Bales, the Aussie kid who went viral last week because of the constant bullying his mum says he gets, has turned down a crowd-funded trip to Disneyland. A GoFundMe page set up last week has raised more than $470,000. His family wants all that cash to go to charity instead. Now, the war in Syria has reached the inevitable point, the battle for Idlib. Caught between the warring sides are millions of women and children.
Idlib. 4 million people now live there, but 9 years ago, before the war began, only 1.5 million did. The vast majority of Idlib's current inhabitants have been displaced multiple times, survived carpet bombings, and lost loved ones. How did this come to be?
It's cruel beyond belief that civilians, mostly women and children, living under scraps of plastic sheeting in freezing conditions, are being bombed. Entire families, some who have fled from one corner of Syria to the other over the course of the past decade, are tragically finding that bombs are part of their everyday life.
Since 2014, the Assad regime started to transport besieged civilians and fighters towards northwestern Syria as a part of a strategy that allowed fighters and civilians to leave the neighborhoods they lived in before they were retaken by Assad regime forces. As the Assad regime and its allies continued its advancements and Russia officially entered the war, people from across the country were pushed further and further.
A lot of people currently in Idlib have come from Ghouta. A lot of them have come from Halab. A lot of them have come from Deir ez-Zor. A lot of them have come from Homs.
During this period, the Assad regime used green buses to transport the families to the northwest. And with that, these green buses became the symbol of forced displacement in the country.
Idlib has been essentially a safe haven for so many individuals, thousands and millions, in fact, from other parts of the country that have been attacked or persecuted.
Idlib was a lost safe haven, and right now there is no more Idlibs.
Now we have more than 4 million people sitting in northwest Syria, mostly in Idlib.
Now, all these people have become trapped in the city as the Russian-backed Assad regime offensive closes in.
فإن معركة تحرير ريف حلب وإدلب مستمرة بغض النظر عن بعض الفقاعات الصوتية الفارغة الآتية من الشمال، كما استمرار معركة تحرير كل التراب السوري.
The onslaught in northwest Syria have been described as a horrifying crisis and a humanitarian catastrophe, and left 900,000 in a desperate race to outrun a brutal regime offensive. 81% of them are women and children. It is the biggest wave since the start of the war 9 years ago.
They're suffering from bombardment, they're suffering from regime and Russian aerial bombardment, they're suffering from carpet bombs, but they're also suffering from the freezing weather.
Russian and the Syrian regime airstrikes target almost everything.
The attacks on healthcare and health infrastructure, civilian infrastructure, including schools and other community centers like markets, it's not a new thing. I mean, it's been since 2013. And I think the government of Syria and other allies that have access to aerial power are essentially responsible for these attacks.
Their first target will be the hospitals, and then they proceed to other targets. So they bomb the hospital first, so the people start to get evacuated because they think if they bomb the hospital, they will come to us.
And that's not all.
Actually, they are part of their celebration in the victory. They call it the liberation of the city, and then they moved everywhere in the city. And one of the areas, they go to the graveyard and they bring a body of some dead man, and they started to dance and celebrate, and they burn it.
For the almost 1 million people fleeing Idlib, there's nothing left but panic and fear, and nowhere left to go in below freezing temperatures.
People are fleeing under horrendous conditions. Many are on foot or on the backs of trucks in below freezing temperatures, in the rain and in the snow. They're moving into increasingly crowded areas they think will be safer. But in Idlib, nowhere is safe.
After successfully fleeing certain death, people are now dying from indirect causes in the harsh winter.
Almost 50,000 are sheltering under trees or in other open spaces. I am getting daily reports of babies and other young children dying in the cold. Imagine the grief of a parent who escaped a war zone with their child, only to watch that child freeze to death.
What we have right now in the situation, especially in camps, is that we have tents, but the tents don't have proper insulation, the tents don't have proper warming. A lot of the tents themselves happen to be made from polystyrene, and so there's no means of which someone to kind of like keep warm. And so people are freezing to death. People who do have heaters, the heaters themselves aren't proper heating, and so they're either freezing to death or they're suffocating to death. We know the story of the entire family just a couple of days ago, a father and his 2 children who didn't wake up because they went to sleep by a heater, and they ended up, they weren't unable to breathe essentially.
Pushed to the ends of Syria, somewhere between an advancing brutal offensive and a freezing winter, the life of millions of people are at stake, and with no solution in sight, no one knows what the upcoming days hold for them.
All right, we'll keep spinning around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Thursday. Well, the Maldives have joined the Gambia's attempt to get Myanmar punished in the International Criminal Court for its treatment of Rohingya Muslims. The Maldives will be represented by the barrister Amal Clooney. More than 700,000 Rohingya Muslims were forced to flee a military crackdown in Rakhine State in 2017, and what the United Nations said amounted to genocide. A British judge has ruled that Heathrow Airport's $18 billion plan for a third runway is illegal because it doesn't fit with the UK's commitments to addressing the climate crisis. Supporters say expanding London's main airport will be vital for trading links after Brexit, but environmentalists argue that airport growth just means more greenhouse gas emissions. Now, if you drive an expensive car, you're likely to be one of those people who doesn't stop for pedestrians. A study has found that those motorists are also more likely to stop for white people and for women, which is bad news for me. This research from the University of Nevada adds to work by the University of Helsinki, which suggests that people with disagreeable character traits are more drawn to high-status cars. So basically, if you drive an expensive car, you're a jerk. And that's not me saying that, that's science. Now, this is the Chinese DLA, or Duck Liberation Army. It's 100,000 strong and massing at the China-Pakistan border. They are due to be given the green light to invade any day now. Their mission? To defeat the plague of locusts decimating Pakistani crops. Apparently, one duck can eat 200 locusts a day. 200. Their deployment is an intervention to hopefully prevent the predicted damage to food supplies from the insects. Well, now for a look at what could be the future of food. In a world where food security is going to become more pressing as a result of the climate crisis and population growth and locusts, can technology help? You'll have heard of plant-based burgers. Now something called Novameat takes going green one step further.
We are using a plant-based novel formulation, which is composed of pea and rice protein extracts, around 20%, then some rapeseed fat and algae fibers mostly. Global population is growing. We will be around 10 billion by 2050, and the meat consumption is growing globally. So we really need a solution, and we need to provide alternatives to meat.
Well, now to the United States, where the failure to knock down an old building has given the internet something to laugh about. And now for some animals doing stuff, we go down under, where, what do you know, a wallaby and a wombat are sharing some grub. This was posted on ABC Sydney's Facebook page. It has had plenty of views and shares. And if you look closely, at some points, there you go, it seems the wombat is more interested in the wallaby's ear than what's in the bowl. Fair incomes, mate. I'm sorry. And that is all from the Newsfeed team. Reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints and suggestions. You'll find me at Kamali Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on YouTube. Subscribe to that channel. Follow me on Twitter. Follow, subscribe and add. See you again tomorrow.